The most vivid childhood memory, for a long time, was exactly that ring. Just as clumsy as the one who gave it. From copper wire in several layers of dense tightened with one more turn. The boyfriend from the kindergarten, smiling happily, handed this masterpiece to the then 5-year-old Nellie. Having promised that she will definitely become his wife. Years have passed. The picture comes from childhood, then dimmed, then appeared again, and then disappeared in the whirlpools of life. And now Nellie, as if enchanted, looked at the photo of her husband. The attentive mother-in-law immediately noticed a change in mood, asked what happened, but Nelia remained silent. And then it broke. You see, this girl in the last row was taken at the garden graduation. Tomorrow's schoolchildren obediently posed, smiles shone on their faces. A bright and cloudless future awaited them, and Nelia was on the top bench, and below, without one front tooth, her current husband squinted rather. Roma, who entered the room, immediately guessed everything. See, I told you I was getting married. Before that, a lot more will happen. Their paths then diverged for a long time. His parents moved with the military dad, and Nelia stayed in the city. After school, she went to college, got married, everything seemed so reliable and strong. Her daughter grew up and went to study abroad, and the woman suddenly realized quite clearly how strangers she and her husband had become. They met in the first year, and Nelia fell in love for real, so much so that she could not think of anyone except the reason for her love. His name was Stas and he was the first star of the faculty. They crossed paths at common seminars and lectures, but finally became close during the holidays, when a common trip was organized. That's when it turned out that they have very similar interests. The merry fellow and the soul of the company loved to read, but Nelia could not even think that he had enough time for this. Among the general crowd, Nelia felt a true kindred spirit, and then meetings, her unexpected pregnancy, and a wedding. Stas was not afraid of responsibility, and even rejoiced at the news. Then the girl breathed a sigh of relief. No matter how the future father decided, she would never get rid of the baby, but, fortunately, he was a real hero. Next to him, the girl could be calm, he was strong and quickly decided everything, agreed with a relative who had lived abroad for a long time and for the first time they had housing. The bank where Stas got a job after graduation appreciated the efforts of a young employee and gave him a chance. His career went uphill confidently. The daughter was born prematurely and needed care. Doctors warned that the first years would be difficult, it would hurt. And so it was. At school, Marina was no different from her peers, but Stas insisted that Nelia did not go to work and devoted herself to her family. And she obeyed, especially since by that time they no longer needed finances. The husband fully provided everything necessary. Then Nelina's parents bought an apartment too early, and the woman left their house as a memory. Put in order, and they used it as a summer residence. Time passed, the daughter grew up, and Stas's attitude somehow imperceptibly began to change. If earlier spouses could spend hours discussing a variety of topics from children's holidays and work to the details of the life of celebrities, now they were increasingly silent. Or rather, Nellie, out of old habit, tried to start a conversation, but Stas brushed it off. Conversations, now he preferred computer games sitting on the phone. The spouses were clearly moving away from each other. The husband became distant, some kind of stranger. He had not looked at Nelia with the same attention and admiration for a long time. All this hurt and frightened the woman. Well, she could not make any specific claims against Stas. He honestly performed everything that was required of him, but their family relations now sorely lacked the former warmth and sincerity. Once Nelia decided to have a frank conversation. She knew that crises and problems happen in the life of every family. In such situations one cannot remain silent. Don't invent, Nellie, I just get tired at work, then Stas brushed aside. Years passed. Nellie was finally able to pursue her career, she had to start from scratch, but everything was exciting and new. Nothing has changed in the relationship. Stas was a good husband, he took his family on vacation, made gifts, but there was no warmth. The woman felt that he was somewhere far away in his thoughts. But she put it all down to work. The husband opened his own business, was nervous, tired, everything will go back to normal, everything will be fine. She herself always tried to look perfect for her husband. She did not relax, even when she was tired at work or sick. Manicure, beautiful hairstyle, stylish clothes even for home. A woman regularly visited gyms, a beautician. It just so happened, she used to consider herself a gray mouse, and around her husband there were always many spectacular and beautiful women. That's why Nelly thoroughly took up herself. The result exceeded expectations. She began to receive many compliments, the views of the surrounding men became even more eloquent. The husband also did not skimp on praises, they just sounded too on duty or something. And now she will no longer live with him. Stas still does not suspect that his wife knows about his betrayal, and what he did cannot be called in another word. Nelly decided to call Alya. We made friends with her at work and it became news to everyone that two such different people got together. Alya divorced her husband a long time ago, raised two sons herself, was explosive and temperamental. Unlike the calm Nelly. And now, having heard the voice of a friend, Olga briefly commanded. I'll be in half an hour, and you get ready. They had one restaurant on the outskirts of the city, where friends often visited when there was something to talk about, but this time the topic was especially sad. Nelly's car didn't start last night and she had to call her husband. Stas said that he would pick her up at work without any problems, and on the way he stopped to drop into his new office. Those couple of minutes changed her whole life, and the fault was a bright phone case dropped by someone near the driver's seat. Stas did not have this. The coloring was clearly feminine, and after a moment of hesitation, Nelia bent down and pulled out what turned out to be real evidence. The gadget really was female, the screensaver showed off a blonde with magnificent forms. There was no blocking on the phone, and Nelia found out about the history of betrayal, which, apparently, had been going on for a very long time. She did not say anything, then Stas returned the phone to its place. She needed time to think things through and decide what to do. The stranger visited their apartment, judging by the photo, and she felt free in the car. She didn't even notice that she had dropped her smartphone. A friend categorically threatened to break the nose of the traitor, and tried to call Stas right now. Nelia stopped. Tomorrow she herself will say everything, tomorrow, and now she just wants to forget about everything, at least for a while. Live music played, for which they both loved this place. The guitarist, as if understanding the mood, slowly plucked the strings. A handsome, tall man was not always there, but Nelia caught herself thinking that she was glad to see him on stage. She had no idea that all this time he was watching, not daring to approach just because she had a wedding ring on her hand. But today she took off the symbol of the family, thoughtfully waiting for the arrival of Olga. The golden rim remained lying on the table. For many years Nelly blamed herself for her husband's coldness. It turned out it was all about the bright blonde. It was painful. The wine relaxed a little. Tomorrow everything will return again, but for now, let it become at least a little easier. As if sensing her mood, the guitarist approached the table and asked permission to sit down. So an acquaintance began, which then grew into sincere feelings. Roman turned out to be a successful neurosurgeon by vocation, and a rebel by nature, racing cars, love for the guitar and scrupulousness in work. Bizarrely intertwined in his life. It was as if two different people lived in it. And most importantly, they got along well with each other. After a major operation, after many years of hard work and another saved life, he took off his bathrobe, pulled on a leather jacket and had a blast on deserted night tracks. And the music was for the soul. That evening he drove her home. Alya evaporated as soon as she realized where everything was going. The cool night air was sobering. Nelia never crossed the line of what was permitted. She just felt comfortable and calm with this confident and cheerful person at the same time. The next day was difficult. Stas frowningly drummed his finger on the table, glancing meaningfully at the ring left by Nelia, and he needed explanations, and having learned the reason, to Nellie's chagrin, did not even begin to deny it. Yes, they have been together for a long time, but I thought she would not know, but if so, then, for the better, he was going to say everything himself, when. He took his wife's cold tone as if she offended him and gave him. Like a divorce, he just opened a business, he needs another reputation. If she insists, then she will not see the money and he will deprive his apartment of everything. Nelia, listening and not hearing, the person who had been around for so long seemed completely unfamiliar now. Then there was a series of dark days, when he realized that a divorce was inevitable. Stas began to threaten, remembered his daughter and talked about what people would think. With each passing day, disgust for him grew. His friend Alya grumbled, who did not allow her to become limp, and, of course, Roman. He called when he had a free minute and patiently waited until Nelia could meet him. Nobody forbade her. Rather, it was an inner conviction of her own. She has to sort things out on her own and settle things calmly. Her family did not accept help, even if it was already a former one. When at last the judge notified them both of the divorce that had taken place. The first person Nellie called was Roma. That evening they rode all the time, stopping to drink coffee at gas stations and met the dawn, kissed and they were a little later, and then enjoyed each other's company. Stas tried to ruin her life more than once, but at this stage Roman had already offered a serious relationship, so he did not ask Nelia. While you were officially married, I could still tolerate this impudent, and even then I could hardly restrain myself. So now fire you my woman, and I won't let some. Roman was silent. But in general, what these two were talking about Nellie never found out. It was not audible from afar, but Roman never took his hand out of his jeans pocket and behaved completely calmly. But after that day, Stas disappeared from her life for good. She understood that he was in the city and even saw the name of his company on billboards, but he did not bother anymore. And 6 months later she became Roman's wife. The daughter took the news calmly. Marina was never particularly close to her father, but now, when the girl began her own life story, everything turned out to be quite logical. After painting them, Roma invited her to his parents and on the way to the sea they stopped in a small town where the mother and father of her husband lived. And while the men were grilling barbecue in the yard, Nelia asked to see a photo album. This could only happen in the movies, but it happened to them. Together with his family, Roman then moved and finished school in this quiet town. And so he entered the doctor's office and stayed to work where he was born. For all the time they never met, although the universities were on neighboring streets. Yes, and where is it, if Nellie was also carried away by Stas at that time, and Roman had Lena, his first wife. The attitude to life was too different. Roman hated noisy parties and could not live without music, surgery, and a car. Elena was a socialite. For hours I could discuss the outfits and behavior of my friends. The marriage did not last long, and as a result, the man was left alone, and many were interested, but no one clinged to the soul. Then he found that restaurant where he sometimes played for his own pleasure, thought for a while, but then he noticed a mysterious stranger for her sake and came to play. Until she became his wife, as he promised her in early childhood.